I may not hear anything until I start. Well, I like not wearing a jacket. I like not wearing that jacket. I might just preach in this morning. Look okay? Kind of nice not having that in my way. No one said that? Did you get your spaghetti made? Did you get your spaghetti made? Come on, Ethel. Oh, wait, Ethel might be watching. Did you get your spaghetti made? Okay. Okay, good. Yeah. Which one? It's probably the font. It's the font just makes it look like that. It's not a very good font. But I started with it, and it's like I can't stop and trade it. Mm-hmm. It is streaming though? Okay, good. All right. We'll get started here real soon. Okay, folks, we'll go ahead and get started in our Bible class this morning. I'm thankful that you're all here. If you don't mind, turn over in your Bibles to the book of Job. We're going to be getting into chapter 33 this morning. Just as a reminder of what we looked at last week, we started with this character, Elihu. Finally, we hear from this fourth fella, Elihu, and we talked about how he's young and he's, I don't know, maybe somewhat arrogant. I think we'll see a little bit more of that as we progress through what Elihu has to say. He has waited a long time to be able to speak. He's listened to the other friends. He's listened to Job. And now Elihu has some things that he wants to say. And remember, he spent all of chapter 32 just saying, I've got some things I want to tell you. I've got some things I want to get off my chest. And so that's what we find. Well, he kind of gets a little bit more into the meat of it into chapter 33. But he has these angry words. He actually began chapter 32 with that. His anger burned. The anger of Elihu, the son of, and he gives his family lineage, burned because he justified himself before God. And his anger burned against his three friends because they found no answer and had condemned Job. And then again, at the very end of verse 5, Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of the three men, and its anger burned. And so he's an angry guy. And so he expresses his frustration with Job, he expresses his frustration with the friends for not coming up with a satisfactory conclusion concerning this disagreement. And this disagreement, remember, it's not just two friends arguing about where they're going to eat. You know, they're arguing about theology. They're arguing about why Job is suffering. They're arguing about if Job is wicked or not. And so that's the argument. That's the contention. That's the fight. And so nobody's come up with an answer. They've come to a stalemate, and Elihu says, I'm angry about this, and I will come up with the answer. And what we'll find is that Elihu doesn't have anything new to offer. He doesn't have a conclusion that's any different than the other friends. And so what he has to say to Job and to the other friends is nothing new whatsoever. Here's what I think. I think that Elihu likes to hear himself talk. That's what I think. He likes to hear himself talk. Sometimes in our lives, we'll come in contact with somebody who begins to talk about theology, begins to talk about the Bible, talks a little about God, and they're just not right. They got it wrong. And we'll hear people say things about God and about theology, about Christianity that's just not right. And when we hear that, when we hear those people saying these kinds of things, we're often compelled to speak in defense of God or those other people. And rightfully so, sometimes we need to. There are times where we may hear people say something and we don't have to say anything. We don't have to correct every little thing that they may get wrong. Me and Brother Roy were talking about this just the other day, a matter of fact. Can I tell this story a little bit? Okay. He had a fella that come into his house, a bug man to spray and a pest control guy, and Brother Roy begins to talk to him. And he asks about these books, these religious books that Roy has, and he talks to him, and this fella is of a different faith. But instead of correcting every little thing that maybe this guy has to say about God, about Christianity, he just lets it ride. And really what he's doing is building a relationship with this fella. Sometimes people will find those opportunities in their life where conversation goes on, and we think, well, I've got the answer to it, and I'm going to correct them. And sometimes it's just people that like to hear themselves talk. You don't have to correct every little thing. And I wish Elihu would have learned that. He doesn't have to do that. Now, he's got some things I think are good to offer. He certainly talks about the nature of God and how good God is. And those are good, right things to talk about. But he doesn't have any more of an answer about Job's situation than the other friends. But Elihu loves to hear himself talk, and boy, does he ever. He begins his long dissertation and doesn't really let up. Now, if you remember, though, just to not bash him totally, the other friends would speak, and then they would let Job speak. And then they would speak, and then Job would speak. And that would go back and forth. And I'm not sure, I didn't count up all the words of Bildad and Eliphaz and Zophar to see if they equal anything like Elihu. But, to give, not to bash him, those other friends had some opportunities to speak too. It was just broken up between Job's speeches. But have you ever been in a conversation with someone and you can't get a word in edgewise? That's the way I feel this situation is with Elihu. He begins to speak and he doesn't pause. He doesn't say, or he doesn't have a moment where somebody could interject anything. He just begins to speak and he doesn't let up. Now, let's read a little bit in verses 1 through 7. I can't remember if I have that up on the screen or not. Yeah, I do. I've got that. Good. All right. So he says, however, y'all can even read that probably. Well, maybe a little bit. He says, however, now, Job, please hear my speech and listen to all my words. Oh boy, Elihu, thanks. Behold, now I open my mouth. My tongue in my mouth speaks. My words are from the uprightness of my heart. And my lips speak knowledge sincerely. The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life. Refute me if you can. Array yourselves before me. Take your stand. Who talks like that anyway? Who speaks that way? Who says things like, my tongue and my mouth speaks, and my words are from the uprightness of my heart? I'm bashing Elihu a lot, but I think what he's really telling us is, hey, it's coming from my heart. What I have to say, he says, it's sincere. My lips speak knowledge sincerely, is what he says. I think it's coming from his heart. I don't think it's just a bash or anything like that, but that's an interesting way of putting things. It's hard to speak, at all without moving your tongue. Obviously we use our tongue for that, but he says, my tongue and my mouth speaks. Listen to what I have to say. And here we are, 5 verses into this chapter 33, and Elihu is still giving his introduction of why he wants to say something and his motive behind saying something. So here we are, 22 verses in chapter 32, 5 verses into chapter 33. So what is that? 27 verses, right? 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. 27 verses. And he still hadn't said anything. No meat yet. He don't have anything to offer. And so you think, well, good grief, if this is just the introduction, how long is this monologue? How long are you going to speak if this is just the introduction? I went to church for a while, and the preacher there, boy, if he would speak on Sunday nights especially, 55-minute sermon. All right? So we'd get up, he'd have a few songs and some prayers, and then he would get in at 5 after, and he did not quit until on the hour. And even then, it might stretch over a little bit. Wow, boy, wear you out. On a Sunday night, I'm already exhausted, I say this tongue-in-cheek. I've already punched my clock that morning, all right? So I don't mean that to be disrespectful. I've already been to church. I've heard my sermon. I've worshiped. And now I'm going to come and hear a 55-minute lecture. Whew. Wear a guy out. Well, Elihu, he's just getting started in his introduction, and I think he's got a long way to go. He hadn't said anything that means anything yet. Up to this point, Elihu had just given an introduction to the other men of words that he had prepared. And that's it. They told us, I remember in preaching school, they would tell us, when you get up there to preach, one of the biggest things that people do when they first start preaching is they'll say things like, well, I thought about what I was going to preach about, and I studied it all out, and so here's what I'd like for us to talk about. If you don't mind, turn over to Galatians chapter 5. Well, here's the thing. You don't have to say, well, I thought about what I was going to speak about. You don't. You don't have to say, I've studied it all out. Just get up there and preach. Just get up there and say, turn over in your Bibles to Galatians chapter 5. We're going to look at verses 13 through into Galatians chapter 6, verse 5, which that's what we're going to study in our sermon later on. You don't have to give a big, long introduction. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and I know there's people that, there'll probably be somebody here that gets up and does a devotional, and they'll say, well, I thought about what I was going to speak about. That's okay. But your guys that have been doing it a while, they don't have to get up there and say, well, I've studied it all out, and I've prepared, and I've been thinking hard about what I was going to talk to you guys about. Well, you hadn't said anything just yet of substance. Well, Elihu hasn't said anything just yet. He's just giving words, long words. Keep reading verse 6 through 7. He says, behold, I belong to God like you. I too have been formed out of the clay. Behold, no fear of me should terrify you, nor should my pressure weigh heavily on you. So Elihu says, listen, I was made just like you. So, listen to what I have to say. I was just like you. I was formed out of the clay. And so don't worry. Don't be afraid. Don't fear anything. I'm not going to put any pressure on you. Okay? I'll take it easy on you, Job. I'll take it easy on you. Well, Elihu, he doesn't really do that. I think we'll see Elihu is even more blunt, and I think he is even more disrespectful to Job, and even up in Job's face. At least that's the implication that I think I get from the passage, that he's he's just kind of arrogant about it. So this idea of saying, well, I'm just like you, but don't worry, I won't put any pressure on you. I'm going to take it easy on you. No, he doesn't do that. And that's because we're able to read ahead. Now, if you haven't read any in the book of Job, you'd be thinking, okay, good, Elihu, thank you. The other guys seem to really give Job a hard time, and maybe you're going to take it easy on him. Well, he says that, but he doesn't do that. Doesn't do that at all. So Elihu summarizes Job's speeches, first of all. So again, we get into 18 verses of this chapter, and he still hasn't given us anything. He just summarizes what Job had said. So sure, okay, great. This is all that Job needs. He just needs another orator to tell him how unrighteous and how wicked he is. Great. He's fallen right in line. He's going to, just summarize everything that Job has to say. As a matter of fact, Elihu sums up Job's defense in verses 9 through 11, and then concludes in verse 12, and he says, "Behold, let me tell you, you are not right in this, for God is greater than man." And you sit there and you think, okay, thanks. We didn't know that, Elihu. I appreciate that. God is greater than man. That's a great, big, wonderful revelation that you've come to. It's so deep, Elihu. I'm giving him a hard time. Maybe I should be more relaxed with Elihu. But I can't help it. I keep thinking he's not giving us anything that means anything. Well, sure, God is greater than man. You feel like saying, duh, no kidding. No kidding at all. Of course he is. So he doesn't really give us anything at all. He's just giving us those same kind of things. And so Elihu, to further express his assessment of Job's situation, in verse 13 he says, "Why do you complain against him that he does not give an account of all his doings?" Look at verse 13. Look what he says. Why do you complain against him that he does not give an account of all his doings? He's talking, why does Job not complain against God that he doesn't give an account of all the things that God has done? Why do you complain against God with that? Well, in Elihu's mind, Job is resisting God, especially when Job begins to try to defend himself. And so Elihu is determined to finally get through to Job that this is the wrong approach. And actually, it's difficult to find too much fault with Elihu's assessment in verses 9 through 11. Okay, sure, he's captured the essence of Job's monologues, as Job has portrayed God as out to get him, so to speak. Look at verses 9 through 11. Helps set the stage for us. He says that Job said, "I am pure without transgression. I am innocent, and there's no guilt in me. Behold, he invents pretexts against me. He counts me as his enemy, and he puts my feet in the stocks, and he watches all of my paths." So this is Elihu trying to summarize what Job said. And he really misquotes Job here. Job is not saying that he has no sin. Job never said that he is perfect and that he's without sin or righteous with no mistakes whatsoever. But here, Elihu takes part of what Job says and twists it around to try to make a point. And he says that Job has said, "I am pure without transgression." Well, he is pure, but he never said he never sins. Okay, that's the big difference. And I think that we can say that about ourselves too, can't we? At least we try to. I'm a Christian. I'm pure, I'm trying to be righteous, but I still sin. Well, that's what Job said. But Elihu makes it out to sound like Job is saying that he never made any mistakes whatsoever. I am pure and without transgression. I am innocent and there is no guilt in me. He's taking something that Job has said and twisted it around and to use that against him, to attack him. People do that a lot in conversations. They'll take something, when you're having an argument with somebody, they'll take something that you've said and they'll twist it around and make it sound like this to use it against you. And I think that's what Elihu has done. So verse 9 is just this exaggeration of Job and what he had what Job had said about his purity and about his sinlessness. Job actually never said any of those things. Elihu just kind of took a piece of what Job had said in his monologue and uses it against him here. Look at verse 15. Elihu says, "In a dream, a vision of the night, when sound sleep falls on men while they slumber in their beds." Here again, is this reference to dreaming. We've seen that back in chapter 7 and verse 14. When Job had mentioned it, he said, in that verse he says, "You frighten me with dreams and terrify me by visions." He's talking about God. He has these bad dreams, these night terrors, if you will. And so, again, Elihu brings that up all over again, talking about this dream, a vision in the night when sound falls on men and they slumber in their beds. And Elihu thinks he's onto something when he says, verses 14 through 18, that those nightmares had meaning, actual communications from God. Look what he says. So, verse 14, he says, "Indeed, God speaks once or twice, yet no one notices." And then he says, "In the dream." Now, go to verse 16. "And then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction, that he may turn man aside from his conduct and keep man from pride. He keeps back his soul from the pit and his life from passing over into Sheol," or the grave. And so Elihu says, all those dreams, they may have meant something there, Job. Maybe that was some instruction from God. Maybe you should pay attention to your dreams. Maybe you should pay attention to your dreams. Well, I don't think that has any merit myself. I don't know about you, but I don't remember most of my dreams. I don't remember them very well. I remember one the other day, and I started thinking about it because I heard something on the radio that says that maybe you should write down your dreams, journal them. Every morning get up and write out your dreams. And I'm like, I'd have like 2 or 3 pages written out for the whole year if I was to do that. I don't remember my dreams most of the time. I'm sure I dream, but I don't remember them. Kira, boy, you dream every night, don't you? And it's all about me. No, I'm kidding. No, she dreams, and she'll wake up and she'll say, "Oh, you're never going to believe what I dream about." And you know what I do? I roll my eyes every time, don't I? I roll my eyes. You know why? Because I'm jealous. I don't ever have dreams like that. I don't ever think about. I don't have those kinds of things. The other night she dreamed that Walter was kidnapped. And she got up in the middle of the night and goes to check his bedroom to make sure that he's still there. And of course he is. Well, Elihu's saying, "Hey, Job, those dreams that you're having, they probably mean something. And you should pay attention to them. Maybe it's God giving you instructions. And you need to listen to them and act upon those dreams." And sometimes we do that with our dreams too, don't we? We think, maybe that means something. Well, no, I don't think so, because people dream the craziest things, and I don't see that being anything that you need to hang your hat on for life or anything like that. I can't imagine that. And I'm not saying, when I use the word dreams, I'm not talking about aspirations that you should accomplish in your life. I'm talking about you dreamed, like, you remember anybody ever dreamed that they went to school with no pants on? That doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean anything. There's no hidden meaning that God is trying to give to you through your dreams. I don't believe that. But Elihu is alluding to that. He said, "Hey, look. maybe you should listen to this dream that God has in store for you. All right? Any questions or comments? I keep running through this pretty quickly. Anything at all? Okay, so let's look a little bit more. In verses 19 through 33, we find that Elihu thinks that Job has dwelt on the problem too much. Okay? This is so funny because Elihu really is trying to be a good counselor. And, I think about sometimes I hear people give counsel to other people and they'll say, you know what your problem is? Which usually if someone starts with, you know what your problem is? It's probably not their problem, and it's probably not very good advice to begin with anyway. But if someone says, you know what your problem is? You're thinking too hard about this. You're thinking too much about your problems. And that's not too bad of advice, but I don't know. Elihu says, Job, you've dwelt on this problem too much. Okay, so let's think about what Job has lost and what he's going through. He's lost all of his kids, all of his possessions, and most of his health, I would say. He's lost the support of his wife. I wouldn't say her faithfulness. I don't know if she's still in the picture. I don't know if she's still there or not. I know that she has already told him to curse God and die, so she's not very supportive. So that's the problems that Job is going through. And everybody is telling Job, the reason that you've lost everything, the reason that you're in such bad health is because you've sinned against God. And that's your problem. And now Elihu says, you're thinking too much about your problem. Okay, well, what should I think about? What should Job think about? I don't know. I don't know if there's anything else for him to think about. His whole life has been turned upside down. It's not very fair to say you're thinking too much on this problem. All right, so let's look a little bit. Verse 19 through 22. It says, man is also chastened with pain on his bed and with unceasing complaint in his bones, so that his life loathes bread and his soul favorite food. His flesh wastes away from sight, and his bones which were not seen stick out. Gross. Then his soul draws near to the pit of his life, to those who bring death. Ooh, that's a terrible way of looking at things, isn't it? Terrible way of looking at things. I hate that for him. And so he is giving him some advice, but it's not very good advice at all. The main pain experiences that man goes through causes him not to want to live forever. You could say it just keeps us from being foolish in the way of wanting our lives to go on in this life forever, But the things that we experience today, we think, boy, I want this to end. I think God designed it that way. I think the pain that we experience now makes us long for the days of no pain. The tears that we cry now, we look forward to the days that we don't have tears, and He wipes away every tear that we do have. All the things of the physical life are just gone. Kira and I will talk a lot of times. I wish the Lord would just come back right now. If the Lord would come back right now, we wouldn't have to worry about that. Now, there's times in my life where I'm like, boy, I don't want the Lord to come back just yet. We're working on this, or I need to repent, and I don't want Him to come back now. I'm still working on myself, and there's still more people that I want to work on. So there's part of me that says, I don't want Him to come back now. But when you're going through pain, there's a part of you that says, man, I'm just ready for it to end. When you're going through hurt, you're thinking, I'm just ready for the Lord to come back. I'm ready for eternity. And so then he suggests that he who responds submissively to God's chastisement will regain health and joy. If you'll respond, if you'll do what's right, Elihu says, you'll be full of joy. And so instead, Elihu feels that Job should have immediately accepted that he was being chastised. He should have confessed it, and he should have moved on. You're thinking too hard on this. All right, let's look at verses 33 through 26. He says, if there is an angel as mediator for him, 1 out of 1,000, to remind a man what is right for him, then let him be gracious to him and say, deliver him from going out down to the pit. I have found a ransom. Let his flesh become fresher than in youth. Let him return to the days of his youthful vigor. Then he will pray to God, and he will accept him, that he may see his face with joy and may restore his righteousness to man. If there is a mediator for man to ask God to restore him and deliver him, man prays and God accepts him. God shows mercy that man doesn't deserve. I think it's important for us to pay particular attention to verse 23. If there is an angel as mediator for him, 1 out of 1,000. Think about that. To remind man what is right for him. You know, he's making reference back to those dreams in verses 14 through 18. And he suggests that not only did those dreams have this meaning, but Job had if he had someone to interpret them for him. Redeem his soul from going into the pit. Verse 28. Well, we know who that redeeming angel is. And the word angel there, you know, it's important to think about a messenger. And that's what the word angel means. And so when he says, if he only had, if there was an angel as mediator, somebody to interpret that for him. I don't know if this is in direct, I don't know. I don't think that what Elihu is, you know, visioning is a savior. I don't think that's what he has in store for him. I don't think he's thinking that. I don't think that concept is even really there just yet in man's mind. And certainly not Elihu here. He's not inspired. And so he's not giving a prophecy about an angel that could mediate for man. However, that principle is there. The idea of somebody helping us along and getting us right back with a good relationship with God is certainly there. In verse 29 through 30, he says, he has redeemed my soul from going into the pit, and my life shall see the light. Behold, verse 29, sorry. Behold, God does all these oftentimes with men, to bring back his soul from the pit, that he may be enlightened with the light of life. And so God does this repeatedly with man, and keeps him from death and makes life enjoyable all over again. And then he says in verse 32, if you have anything to say, answer me, speak, for I desire to justify you. If not, listen to me, keep silent, and here it is, and I will teach you wisdom. Oh, good. Thanks, Elihu. He's saying to Job, listen up. Listen. You be quiet and let me speak. See, I don't know. Am I wrong? I feel like that's just somewhat disrespectful. I don't know. For such a young whippersnapper like Elihu to just say that to Job and what he's going through, I just don't see that as very good counsel at all. Be quiet and listen. Be quiet and listen. All right, let's keep going. Skip ahead. If y'all don't mind, I've lost connection with the computer apparently. I'm going to have to fix that where I have one controller. I have to do 2 of them. For the TV here and for the one up there. And I got to make it where I can just click once and it goes. Is anybody back there? Can you advance the slide a couple of times? Do it twice for me because I think, yeah, verse 33. One more time. There we go. So Elihu in chapter 34 just won't let up. He won't let up. He keeps going and he keeps giving him such a hard time. And it's just more and more of the same. More and more of the same. All right, so let's read a little bit. Go ahead and advance it again. We've got the text up there. Verse 34 says, Then Elihu continued and said, Hear my words, you wise men, and listen to me, you who know. For the ear tests words, and the palate tastes food. Let us choose for ourselves what is right. Let us know among ourselves what is good. For Job has said, I am righteous. But God has taken away my right. Should I lie concerning my right? My wound is incurable, though I am without transgression. This is all that quotes that Elihu is saying that Job said. What man is like Job, who drinks up derision like water, who goes in company with the workers of iniquity, and walks with wicked men? For he has said, It profits a man nothing when he is pleased with God. Man, Elihu, gosh, he can't get any more blunt right here. We see in verse 2 that Elihu is addressing more than just Job. Notice what he says. Hear my words, you wise men. So I think he's talking to the three friends and to Job and really anybody else that might be there. But he's certainly addressing these guys that have come up with some kind of an answer. And he says, Listen to me, you who know. And he accuses of Job of having said, I am righteous. Again, he takes something that Job has said and he twists it around. Well, Job actually did say that he was righteous. In chapter 12, verse 4, in chapter 13, verse 18, and in 27 and verse 6, he says, I'm righteous. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with it at all. I can say that I'm righteous, but I'm only righteous because God makes me righteous. And I try to live a righteous life. And that's what Job is trying to say to him. Hear my words. Listen to what I have to say. That's important. A few phrases that are here. I've highlighted them up here on the board for us. If you can see them, I think you can. Yeah. Hear my words, you wise men. I am righteous, but God has taken my right. I am without transgression. He drinks up desertion like water. Derision like water, and goes in company with the workers of iniquity, walks with the wicked men. So these are all things that Elihu is saying that Job does. And so the remainder of through verse 5, God has taken away my right, my judgment. It would appear that Job had said that also in 27 and verse 2. So what a terrible thing to have said to him. And he just distorts these monologues. This word, he drinks up derision like water. This is mockery and ridicule. It's almost like Elihu is saying, Job wants to be mocked. Job wants to be ridiculed. Because he drinks it up like water. He enjoys it. And what Eliphaz is saying, he drinks it up like it's water, and he accuses Job of being a worker of iniquity, walks with wicked men. And then I love this last phrase right here, for he has said, it profits a man nothing when he is pleased with God. So Elihu is saying that Job says, it doesn't do you any good to try to be righteous. It doesn't do you any good to try. You know? And maybe you feel that way sometimes. You ever think that, is this even worth it for me to come to church? Is it worth it for me to study my Bible and to pray? Is it worth it at all? Well, it is, and you don't want to have that mindset that Elihu is accusing Job of having, of saying it's profiting man nothing when he's pleased with God. It's a good thing. Well, Elihu twists Job's words completely around. All right, let's look at the next section here, 31 through 32. And so Elihu presents his solution. Oh, good. A solution. And you know what that solution is? Oh, guess what, guys? Man is evil. And so then he spends the rest of the chapter saying that very thing. He says, "For has anyone said to God, I have borne chastisement? I will not offend any more. Teach me what I do not see. If I have done iniquity, I will not do it again." Here's his solution. There's no harm in admitting that you've sinned, Job. Admit it, confess it, put it behind you. And now we see that what Elihu has to say is not any different than what the other guys have said to Job. Nothing more. It's the same stuff. However, to Job, admitting to wrongdoing without having committed any wrongdoing would absolutely forfeit his integrity. Okay? So let's think about it from this perspective. Let's say that somebody is accused of something. Okay? Maybe in their job. And they're innocent. We know that they're innocent. Okay? The rest of the world doesn't. That person knows, and we understand this person hasn't done anything wrong. For that person to admit that they've done something wrong forfeits any trustworthiness, any integrity that person has. So Job feels like if I give in and say, okay, sure, I've sinned. In some way, I've sinned. Well, then he's lost all of his ground and forfeited everything. And he says, I can't do that. I've tried to live my life righteous, and everybody's accusing me of doing something that's wrong. And if I say, okay, fine, I've done something wrong, well, then what's the point? And that's a terrible situation to be in. That's what Job is in right now. Now, if you think that Elihu has some merit in his speech, let's look at verse 35 through 37. Because Elihu has no clue. No clue whatsoever. Verse 35 through 37, he says, Job speaks without knowledge, and his words are without wisdom. Job ought to be tired to the limit. Sorry, not tired. Tried to the limit. Tired too, but tried to the limit, because he answers like wicked men. For he adds rebellion to his sin. He claps his hands among us and multiplies his words against God. Now those are some accusations. Verse 35, Job has spoken with no knowledge. Job answers like wicked men, verse 36. And now, verse 37, Job adds rebellion to his sin. And I think it's interesting, he says he claps his hands among us. Oh, yes. So, it's almost like he's saying Job is so evil that he is in approval of that evil and that ugliness. He's clapping his hands. Good. That's what Elihu thinks that Job is doing. And he multiplies his words against God. He says so many things against God. Now, a case can be made from Job's speeches that he certainly lacked some knowledge. I'll agree to that. I think so. There's some things that Job didn't understand. And I suppose that Job's contention that wicked people do sometimes prosper might have been construed by his audience to mean that he was somehow justifying the wicked. They can be wicked because, look, they still prosper. Although that's not what he said and really what he even meant. He's just making the point that sometimes people who are wicked, they go unpunished. We see that in our world today. Job's making that point. But the friends took what Job said and says, oh, look, so you're saying, Job, that those who are wicked are going to go unpunished anyway, so we might as well all be wicked. No, that's not what he said. We know from chapters 1 and 2 that there's no accuracy in this at all. Job is blameless. And we understand the whole picture of what's going on, of why Job is suffering. That Satan is the one who's caused these things to happen, and God allowed that to happen to test and to try Job, to show and to prove that he was going to be faithful no matter what. And don't you know that Job grew through all of that? Well, Elihu is wrong. And so Elihu goes on for 2 more chapters into chapter 35. Here's a lesson on counseling. Okay? Here's the lesson. Give counsel to people to truly help them and not for selfish motives. So, Elihu seems to want to hear himself talk. He's got some things he wants to offer. He wants to counsel him, and he doesn't have anything really worthy to say. And so you want to make your motivations on giving counsel out of no selfish purposes at all. You want to just help people. Some people like to just hear themselves talk when they give counsel, to tickle their own egos. And Elihu had already admitted at the very beginning, chapter 32, verses 19 through 20, that his reason for speaking is that he wanted to just get these things off of his chest. That's his motive. He wanted to just vent his reactions to everything that's been going on. And so that's his reason for giving this speech, not actually to help anybody. That's scary. All right, we'll stop right there and pick up with chapter 35 next time.